Hello, everyone. Today is July the 25th. Welcome. We here at Voter Education 365 are happy that you've tuned in with us again. What we're looking to do for you today is to remind you not only the importance of voting, but we're going to give you some dates as well. Voter Education 365 Incorporated, our mission statement is to strive to provide voters with the tools to overcome all barriers and hurdles that have historically prohibited comprehensive voter participation. We will spearhead efforts to educate the masses in order to help them develop a clear understanding that every aspect of their lives is impacted by voting. We will encourage active participation by all in all local, regional, and national elections. We will work to eliminate fragmented oftentimes it's get the dissemination of information related to voting policies, practices, and procedures. We want to empower individuals with the knowledge and the capability how to combat voter suppression. We will fervently publicize the fact that all politics are local. We will cultivate ambassadors of voting, charged with mobilizing their communities to engage in political practices and processes. And we want to motivate and encourage all neighbors to pay it forward and to inspire others to do the same. So as we do that, how do we do that? We want to remind everyone that the deadline to register for the August election, and yes, we are having another election in August, August the 23rd, is this week. Today's the 25th, July 29th is the last day that any written application has to be postmarked, or you can go in person to the Board of Election. But we also want to make sure that you know how you can do it virtually and do that up until the 29th. That is by going to the DMV and dmv.ny.gov, dmv.ny.gov. This is how you go and you can register. Now, what would you need in order to register here? You will need either a valid driver's license, a permit, or a non-driver's license. But it's as simple as that. And as you see on the screen, you just click and hover your mouse over the register to vote tag. You click on it, the DMV electronic voter registration application will pop up, and you'll get an opportunity to fill that out. Next, we want you to make sure that you who believe that you are registered. Now, I say that because working the elections for so many years, people come up and they say, but I registered and there should be no reason that my name is not there in that iPad. There are different reasons why it happens. So arm yourself with good practices. Go to www.elections.ny.gov and check on your registration. Now, that may sound like a lot. So if you have any questions ever, you can email us at votereducation365@gmail.com. Dominic, I think now we have given them a lot of information, but I think there's just one more thing we want to remind them, especially for those young people. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide deals with the new law that states that 16-year-olds can now pre-register to vote. And that means you 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and of course the 18-year-olds. The law lets those aged 16 and 17 fill out the voter registration application online or in person. Now, we just went over how to do it virtually. Remember, dmv.ny.gov, or in person at your local Board of Elections. Now, that's particularly for New York, or online at the Department of Motor Vehicles. You will automatically be registered to vote when you turn 18 without the need for a separate trip to the Board of Elections. So, Dominic, we're going to clear that now because we have a phenomenal guest here that thought it not robbery to come to us today. And I said this before, whenever I see her, I think it's just like a love fest. I think that it's important that people know who their candidates are, know what the candidates' platforms are, And you feel a sense of camaraderie, a sense of being home when you're able to talk to one of your soon to be elected officials. So, this is an opportunity. And for those of you watching, for you to know that we are a 501c3 organization and that we have made sure that we invite all parties to come here and talk on this forum. Tonight, we were lucky enough to get the one and the only Jacqueline Gordon, who is running for Congress, New York, 2nd District. So, without further ado, we think it's time for you to get to know her like we do. And we would hope that you would know all of your candidates in a way that you would know their heart, their history, and where they would like to go by way of their platform. So, Dominic, you can take me off screen because now I want this to be all about our own.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much. And we in this community are so happy to have Deborah Payton Jones. She is not the only person in the community like her, but she's the one that brought this forum to us. And Deborah has spent over 25 years working as a counselor at FIT, working with young people, someone near and dear to my heart, as you will learn about in a few minutes as I continue my story. But Deborah has also found it very important to work over 30 years with the Board of Elections every year, every election, to make sure that we do not take our right to vote in vain, because it's what keeps our democracy intact and what will continue to move us forward. And so when Deborah called me and invited me on this program tonight and a few weeks ago, it was a no-brainer for me to come onto this program and to engage in this conversation. I think it's important that we choose our elected officials wisely. And I'll let you know how I got into politics, which is the reason I got into politics is because I realized how important it was to choose our elected officials wisely, and not just because they've been there, for 5 or 10 years, so we just keep voting for them, or because my neighbor said this is a good person to vote for. We really need to start doing our own research, and also in these times, these uncertain times, when the world is moving so quickly. There are issues that are always going to be there that we will always deal with. But in these uncertain times, we have to make sure that we do know the integrity of the people that we're putting in office. We have to know that they speak the truth. We have to know that they will do what's right, even when it's hard, because we don't know what will come down the pike, because things are happening that hasn't happened before, like this unprecedented pandemic that we were just faced with. We hadn't seen a pandemic like this in 100 years. So we needed to have leadership in place that had the right heart and integrity in order to make the right decisions for all of us as Americans. And those decisions impacted how we responded to the pandemic, how many people were harmed, how many people lost their lives. And so that's what we really need to think about as we decide on who our leadership is. For myself, for those of you who don't know me, since I was knee-high to a boll weevil, I've always wanted to be a teacher. So my life and the path that I decided to take was actually quite easy. I was born in Jamaica, not Queens, Jamaica, West Indies. And my parents actually decided to come to America because this is the land of opportunity. And if you wanted to do more, if you wanted to be better, if you wanted opportunities, this is where you came. No matter what you were doing in your own home country, if you come to America, you can be better. And so my parents brought my siblings and I here. I came here when I was 7, went to school. I wanted to be a teacher, so I went to Hunter College, which had a fantastic education program. And after graduating college, I started teaching immediately. I taught for 6 years in New York public schools. And then I moved to Long Island with my family, and I taught 4 years here in Half Hollow Hills School District. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to get a guidance position early in my career after finishing my guidance degree. And I worked for 22 years as a guidance counselor in Wilson Tech, which is actually in the district that I'm running in. So I know a lot of students who've come through Wilson Tech and their families because I worked very closely with them. But just to go back a little bit, when I was in college as a student, I saw an Army commercial that said, "We do more before 9 a.m. than most people do all day." And some of you may remember that commercial if you are around my age. But marketing does work. It was a really good commercial. A lot was happening in that commercial. People were working together. They were getting the job done. There was a lot of action and movement. But most importantly, they were working for this nation, for this country. I wanted to be a part of that. So I literally went down to the recruiting station. I grabbed my best friend. I talked her into joining with me. They had a buddy program that if we joined together, we would go to basic training together, and we could be in the same unit together. But when we got down there, she chickened out. She didn't want to do it. But I'm of the mindset that once I decide to do something, I follow through. So I did join and I followed through for 29 years. And so I had 4 deployments as a military police officer, and I retired at the rank of lieutenant colonel. But during my Iraq deployment, my deployment to Iraq, it was 14 months. We were deployed in January, and I came home in March of the following year of 2004. And so I missed an entire year, the 14th year of my daughter's life, actually. And so I decided that when I came home, I wanted to be more involved in the political process because it really came home to me then that it mattered the decisions that were made in Washington because they do impact individuals. Sometimes we look at local government and we know that our garbage isn't picked up or the lights outside, our street lights aren't illuminated, and we know where to call. But sometimes when big decisions are made in Washington, we don't realize the impact it has on us as individuals. So I came home and I went down to my party office and I told them I wanted to get more involved, more than just voting, which I did since I was 18 years old. I always voted. And in starting to do committee work, the committee, realized that I was a veteran. I was a PTA mom. I worked on the booster club at the school. I did shared decision making. I was a Girl Scout leader and really very involved. I was a teacher and thought that I would make a good addition to the town board, the Babylon town board. And that's how I got involved in local politics. And I served on the Babylon town board for 13 years. But the reason I started to run for Congress, I decided to run for Congress, is because, which was last cycle, we have about 750,000 people in a congressional district, and there were over 300,000 people in this district with pre-existing conditions. And our current congressman at the time, last cycle, continued to vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And I just didn't think that was good representation. And I've always been of the mindset, if you're not part of the solution, then you become a part of the problem. So I think that could be why I've always picked up all these jobs as well, because I'm always trying to be a part of the solution. I'm always trying to help. And so instead of just pointing fingers, I decided to jump in and to run and to bring real representation to this district. I believe that Washington should look like America. I think we should have representatives who understand our struggles, who understand how hard it is to pay a $10 copayment for medication. Like, that's a lot of money. especially when you go to make 2 or 3 or 4 prescriptions at one time at a $10 copayment. Some people have a $20 or $25 copayment. That's a lot of money. And I think some of our representatives don't understand what impact that can have on a working family. And so I think that we need representatives who understand those struggles. I believe that with my lived experiences as an immigrant, as a union member for over 30 years, I understand how important it is to have collective bargaining. I understand how important it is to have those protections. In this district that I'm running in, we have over 100,000 union members right here in this district. So I think supporting union is wonderful, but we need to start having people at the table who are impacted by the issues that are being solved at that table. And so representation matters. And so I am looking forward to representing the second district. I am looking forward to continuing to go through the district and talking to voters. That's what I've always done. I've always shown up. I'm looking forward to seeing voters. I've been to corners of this district where voters have said to me that their federal representative has not been to in their communities in over a decade, have not been to their community. That is unheard of to me. And so those of you like Deborah and other community members, they know that I show up. I show up and I stay and I listen and I hear and I follow through and I close loops, and then I call to make sure that you're satisfied with the solution. And I work. I'm not afraid of hard work. I had 3 jobs for 30 years, and that's not hyperbole. That's fact. And I'm not afraid of hard work. And so I'm ready to represent you. I'm ready to go to Washington. I'm ready to continue to push my sleeves way up above my elbows to get the job done. And I'm ready to stand firm to make sure that we get the resources that we need here in the second district. And I'm also ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with the other congressional members in this region so that together we can stand stronger to also have a louder voice to make sure that the resources get to this region. So as always, I really appreciate Deborah thinking of me and inviting me to this program to make sure that you can get to know who I am, and of course I can get to know you as well.
That was just eloquent. That was beautiful. And it brought to mind a few things about you that I know that you were not only in the military, but you were military police.
Yes.
And not to say that being in the military is not enough, but when you are in Iraq and you're military police, that just takes it to another level. We wanted we want people to get to meet all of the politicians, all the candidates, and we are so happy that you said yes to the invitation and that you looked right into the screen and you told people who you are. So when you hear, you meaning the viewing audience, when you hear things being said about different candidates, make sure that you have done your own research. Make sure that you get to know the candidates for yourself, because then you cannot be swayed in a way that takes away from their platform because they're trying to come after the person. So just make sure that in any election, that the only mud I want to see is the mud for me for a nice facial. So let's not even entertain anyone slinging any mud. Know that we have a competent candidate here that wants to ingratiate herself to you, because the only way that any of our elected officials can do better or can do what we need them to do is to know what it is that we want. So we invite any and all candidates and currently seated elected officials to come on our show so that all of the viewing audience will get a chance to see you, to hear you, and maybe learn something about you that they may never have known. I've learned some politicians have a sense of humor that we never even thought that was even possible. We laugh so much backstage. So, and we also know that there's a lot that have such platforms that they have so many things that they want to help us with, but they need us to help them because they cannot do it by themselves. Jackie, I also want to say that you brought up something that I thought was very, very important when you spoke and you alluded to cultural competency.
Mhm.
So when we talk about these things, we're not saying that everybody has the same shared experiences. That's not the case in life. But to understand that each person's experiences brought them to the point in life that they are today is important for people to just grasp, for them to understand, for them to say, they did grow up a little differently than I did. So maybe,
And that's okay.
and that's a lived, shared experience. You know,
Hmm.
there are no two anything exactly alike. You can find identical twins and you can see what's not identical by the identical twins. So there's nothing that's only singularly done. God made every one of us perfect. And so by each one of us being perfect, what we're here on this earth to do is what we're here to do. And so we need to make sure that we don't just elect our elected officials, but we consult with them.
Hmm.
We talk to them. We get to know them in a way that they see that the things that are important to us, maybe they just didn't think of it. It's not that they don't care. Jackie, is there anything else that you would like to leave us with here today? I think that the only thing I want to ask you is for you to say, and you said it to me before, and I want you to say to them, the importance of voting. What is the importance of voting? And for those people who may not think that their vote counts, uh, we know of races that were lost by 6 votes. So just give us a little before we let you go off to your next wonderful event. Whatever you're going to do next is going to be wonderful. But just give us a little bit about the importance of voting.
Well, in a democracy, voting is important because that's how your voice is heard. And that's how you can allow your voice to be heard. And not voting, um, you're not a part of the solution or a part of the process when you don't vote. In addition to that, for us in particular, us, I mean persons of color, we actually had to have a law enacted that allowed us to vote, and people died, black and white people, black, brown, and white people died so that we could have that opportunity to be able to cast our vote and let our voices be heard. And so the truth is, if we want change to happen, all we need to do is to show up to vote. And that's clearly, there's so many examples, and you can look back in history and see the example. We wanted a black president, for example. We showed up and he was elected. President Obama was elected because we showed up to vote. Um, there are so many other examples. When we don't show up, certain things happen as well. And that's because we didn't show up and cast our vote. And then there was a result for that also. So we need to show up and vote because you get an opportunity to have your voice be heard. You all know that I ran last cycle and I lost by a slim margin, but in running, sometimes they put candidates together so that you can have some camaraderie. So I was actually in 4 different cohorts last cycle. I was in a cohort with veterans. I was in a cohort with Black female candidates. I was in a cohort with candidates in competitive races. And I was in a cohort with, I can't remember, but another group. And so we all, helped each other and commiserated together and really helped us all the way through. And the very last race that was counted, my race was actually the second congressional district, made history last year. And our race was actually one of the last race that was finished counting, one of the last across the country. But the very last race that was counted in across the country was one of the cohorts that I was in, and my friend lost her race by 6 votes. Six, 6 votes, six. And so when you say your vote doesn't matter, it does matter. And had she won, we wouldn't have such a slim margin in the Congress right now. Our margin would be stronger because we would have had an additional seat in the House of Representatives right now, right? And so a lot of what we're dealing with right now, we may not have to deal with because we would be stronger. And so that's what happens. We need 2 additional seats. Democrats need 2 additional seats in the Senate to pass the bills that the House has already passed and moved over to the Senate, that's now stuck in the Senate, that's not being moved. If we had 2 additional seats in the Senate, we would be able to move it because we wouldn't be dependent on the 2 senators who, go back and forth. And if we were stronger in the House, if our House was stronger, we would have more power on the congressional side. And so votes do matter because the votes that we vote make the House stronger, makes the Senate stronger. And it all trickles up or trickles down. And so please, please go exercise your right to vote, because after it's all said and done, whatever happens, we have to live with that. And we have seen that before. We know how that turns out. And sometimes it's not always the way we want it to. And some of the repercussions of that will last for decades, for lifetimes, sometimes even 100 years. So right
Very
now,
eloquently put.
yeah, yeah. So I do have to run, Deborah, because I do have another event. But thank you so much for inviting me. I always love it coming here because this is such an important topic, and the new information that you give to people, like the pre-registration for young people, I think is so important and will help our registration efforts. So thank you so much, and I look forward to joining you again in the future. Thank you so
Before
much.
you go, we did get a message from a constituent. She wrote from Vanessa Fields. Thank you, Mrs. Gordon, for your leadership on Long Island and best wishes in the upcoming election. That's
Thank you
one of the
so
things that
much.
we like about immediately showing and being able to talk to the community, because you immediately get the feedback. We would be remiss if we didn't say that Voter Education 365 is a 501c3 organization, and we make sure that we bring all sides to the table. Today, we were blessed to have Jackie Gordon running for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District here in New York. Please, everyone, exercise your right to vote. At no point am I ever telling you who to vote for, but I want you to then listen to the candidates, read their platform, and make an intelligent decision when you go to vote. But I need you to vote, because that's the only way that we can have an additional conversation. If you vote, then we can have a conversation about who voted, how many people voted. We don't care who they voted for. We just want to get as many people who are eligible out there and voting. Jackie Gordon, we know that we're going to invite you on our show again. We know that the election that you're about to partake in is going to take place on August the 23rd.
No, I'm the
August
present.
23rd is, I'm sorry, August
Yeah,
23rd is the primary. You are November the 8th.
I'm November the 8th because I do not have a primary. So, yes, just be ready for me on November 8th.
Let me
And
tell them what that means. That means that there's nobody running against her in the Democratic Party for Congressional District 2. There's a candidate that's running on the other side for Congressional District 2 that
yes,
we want you to understand that she is coming forth, because had she had a candidate, now, sorry, it's a congressional race that's coming up in August, but it's not a race that will include Jackie Gordon.
right. Thank you.
Thank you for
And
your
if you'd
time.
like more information about my candidacy or my campaign, I can put it in the chat. You
And
can
Dominique will post
check
it.
it out on JackieGordonForCongress.com.
Thank you.
And we have a big tent, and we welcome anyone who would like to come and join Team Jackie. I don't have my glasses on, so I
It's
hope I
okay.
get this right.
Dominique is writing at the same time.
Oh, she is. Okay.
And she's going to post it.
Okay.
And you can
Yeah.
get additional information by sending an email to votereducation365@gmail.com. Jackie Gordon, we're going to let you go to your next event. We would not like to hoard all of your time and your energy, but we want to say thank you so very much for coming with
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you for having me, Deborah. Thank you all. Thank you. Good night.
Good
Get
night.
home safe. Thank you.
So, Dominique and I went to a convention this past weekend that was just amazing. It was thrown by Rock Nation, and it was a social justice convention, the inaugural social justice convention, and it was amazing. We were able to meet and discuss and network with organizations that are not for profit organizations that are all trying to just educate the masses in a way that's huge. So we were able, and we hope that we can get this technology right. We're trying, and we're behind the scenes trying to make it right. So we want to show you two clips of two of the individuals that we met there, two of the many individuals we met and we networked with that wanted to just bring another message to you about voting. So, Dominique, I'll beg your indulgence for a moment, and this is a test. So please don't judge us by our beginning technological advances that we're trying to move towards. So, Dominique, let's go for it.
Hi, Barry Chef. You are the best. We've known you, about you, for so many years. Can you just tell our viewing audience why is it important to vote?
Vote like your life depends on it. Our democracy is embattled, and there's nothing more important that you can do than vote. Your life, the life of your family and your loved ones, all depends on it. Please.
So, let me tell you who that was. Those of you of a certain age will know him from one instance. Those of you who are now within the realm of what's happening in society now will know him from what he does now. That is Attorney Barry Scheck. He was one of the members of the team that helped to acquit O.J. Simpson. That was what he did back, I guess it's almost 30 years ago now. So now what he's running, and he's been a lawyer, he's from New York, he lives in California. I think he's bi-coastal, and he was at the convention. He was one of the honorees. He was the only honoree at the convention. And his project that he's working on currently is the Innocence Project. Now, the Innocence Project, and we'll bring up more information about that as the weeks go further, but he made sure that his team, his notoriety was lent to individuals who may have been wrongfully convicted. And to date, I believe his number was 375 that they have gotten exonerated after having been found guilty, and new information surfaced and they were exonerated. And over 375 individuals have he and his team to thank for that very thing. And why is that important for us to tell you about today? Not only was he telling you how important it is to vote, but he also wants you to know that in New York, there's a new law, and the new law went into effect in January. And that new law says that anyone who has completed their time in jail, not you don't have to wait until you have gotten off parole. You do not have to wait until after your supervised period, post period has ended. Anyone who is no longer physically incarcerated is eligible to register to vote. And that's new as of January. So we want to make sure that those of you who are watching, or those of you who know individuals who may have been rightfully or wrongfully convicted, that they do have the opportunity to vote. And that's something new. For many, many years, it was on a case by case basis. And if you were, well, I'll just say that it was a case by case basis, and it was a long and arduous process. So just make sure you pass the word and spread the word that now you, if you are a person who is rightfully or wrongfully convicted of a crime, you can register to vote. Dominic, do we have that second video? We're going to show you a second video.
Now, everybody knows
That's hilarious, Dominic. It's on the side.
But we want him to tell you, why is it important for you to vote?
I think if you leave politics up to the politicians, you will be disappointed with so much of the politicians that we have. And if you already feel
Now that video, I know that you had to tilt your head to see it, but we're getting better and better every week. That is Ari Melba, who is from MSNBC. And he also was at the convention, and he wanted to make sure that our viewing audience knew that how important he feels it is to vote, and how he's pushing, and he made sure that he did a video for us. We'll be able to tilt the video for next week, and we'll be able to, pardon? And we'll be able to show the whole thing next week. But those are just two of the excerpts and two of the clips of individuals that felt it was important to speak to the viewing audience of Voter Education 365 and remind them how important voting is for all of us. Now, we normally would have so many other little tenets to bring forth for the particular meeting tonight, but we want to make sure that we end on the note that how important it is for each of us to not only register, make sure our family and our friends are registered, but then mobilize them and get them out there to actually vote. Once you see the power of your vote, voting will be just something that's not just something that you have to do, but it's something that you feel compelled to do. We want you to also know that we have a shortage of individuals that work as election inspectors, and that's all over New York. So if you're interested in being an election inspector, whether it's for this election coming up in August, on August the 23rd, the November election, which will take place on November the 8th, or any of the future elections, please contact your local Board of Elections. And you can also email us at votereducation365@gmail.com. And we'll direct you and guide you through the process, and you too can be an election inspector. We want to say thank you for all that you've done. And see, we have here, if you're interested in assisting Jackie Gordon in her campaign, knowing more about her campaign, contacting her campaign, or any other number of ways to contact her, www.jackiegordonforcongress.com. Thank you so very much. As we stated earlier, I am Deborah Payton Jones. Today, my producer is Dominique Jones, and our off-site producer is Smiley. So thank you all for coming out today. Again, if you have any questions, please send it to us, votereducation365@gmail.com. We're also doing an event this week, and we have sent a few, it's going to be very small. It's going to be an inaugural event. So we're going to have some photos, and we'll show you that at our next presentation. And we might have a special one as we know that the 29th is the last day for you to register to vote for the August 23rd election. So please, thank you, Vanessa, for your comments. Thank you for viewing. Thank you all out there in all groups that are viewing today. And no, if you'd like to be a guest on our show, what do we want you to do? Email us, votereducation365@gmail.com. Good night. Have a great evening. And most importantly, think about what it is that's important to you. So as we have these shows, you can ask that of our guests. Have a good evening. Deborah signing off. Dominique, anything you want to say to our group? You want to say good night? Good night. Thank you again.